right. Praising God even for the school of hard knocks. Let's thank him for times when we don't have to learn tough lessons by experience by looking at this chapter, which prophesies the fall of Tyre. Let's call it now, understanding that it describes Tyre's fall and essentially understanding or helping us understand what Tyre was in comparison to what they are now, or at least the now as it is from Ezekiel's perspective in chapter 27. Understanding all of that, let's just go through the structure of the chapter. Understanding that the first 33 verses seem to build up to the now that literally comes up in verse 34 by starting off in a familiar way. Verse 1, the word of the Lord came to me. Verse 2, now you, son of man, raise a lamentation over Tyre. That's the unusual part. Understanding that only a few of these chapters are literally described as lamentations over the fate that awaits the cities or the peoples ahead. This is one of those lamentations. This time, as we said, is going to take the structure of what Tyre used to be. Verse 3, you, Tyre, have said, I am perfect in beauty, a statement of their own admiration for themselves that I shouldn't make fun of, because if you've lived it very long, you've probably had a chance to admire yourself a little bit too much, or I'll just speak from experience. I've had the chance to embarrassingly do that, even if it wasn't admiring my own beauty. There's something I can look back on and say, I could have had a whole lot better perspective on what I was in comparison to what I thought I was. And that is the situation Tyre finds itself in here now. So first lesson is, it's one thing to see the flaw in the person or the group of people that are the object of the story. It's another thing to let that help us fix the flaw in us. And so in looking at Tyre, we're going to see the way that they thought they were perfect in their own beauty based upon the fact that they had their builders actually make them or perfect their beauty in the things that they made and the things that they took from others in the way of trade that we'll see to help perfect their beauty. It's going to talk about the cedars that they had from Lebanon, which is an interesting or kind of fun fact, because if you go back to the start of the building of the temple in Israel, because of those cedars, Solomon sought to trade with them to basically build his own house, or the house of the Lord that he was preparing in Jerusalem, what would become the temple. And I think he also used those cedars for his own personal house not far away. Anyway, that's a side note that goes down, that starts off or helps us start off the list of all of the different nations with whom they traded to build that renowned beauty that they had. Going on through the first 8 verses, starting off that conversation, it'll then go on to talk about not only did they have nice stuff, they had skilled people to help build and protect it. Understanding that in verses 8 and 9, it talks about those skilled men. Verses 10 and 11 going on to talk about their men of war, meaning they didn't rely on their own strength. They traded for mighty men seemingly from Persia and Lud and Put, among other places, to perfect their strength, the protection of that beauty that's mentioned once again in verse 11. Going on in verses 12 through roughly 25 to talk about those who did business with them and traded with them. And there it gives us another look at the long list of nations with whom they traded to perfect their beauty. Going on, however, to switch in verses 26 and 27 to talk about the way all that beauty came to naught when they fell, describing the way that they were dragged or brought out into the seas where they were sunk. Verse 27 will say toward the end, as verses 28 through 32 will talk about the way that so many around them actually were shocked and actually lamented for them. Why? Because they made a whole lot of folks rich in verse 33. However, there is going to be a switch, similar to the switch we saw in Israel or Judah's fate, understanding that those with which Judah is described as whoring themselves eventually turned on them when they saw the degree to which they fell. Something we'll see described seemingly in verses 34 through the end of the chapter, verse 36, where it reads, now you are wrecked by the seas in the depths of the waters. Your merchandise and all your crew in your midst have sunk with you. All the inhabitants of the coastland are appalled at you, and the hair of their kings bristles with horror. Their faces are convulsed. The merchants among the peoples hiss at you. You have come to a dreadful end and shall be no more forever. And even though there are a lot of things that caught my attention in this chapter, because we have committed to trying to get these lessons back down to around 5 minutes or God willing less, I'm going to stick with one of the familiar lessons, even one that I'm kind of repeating redundantly from Sunday. And that is some of the same people we see on our way up, maybe the same people we end up seeing on our way down. Understanding that tire and believing that they had become perfect in their beauty remind me of those who forget about all those who are essential in their ascent, meaning those without whom they would not have been able to build whatever it is they have become. And so now Tyre on its way down is going to fall and be, as the chapter concludes, no more, as all those they were once able to look down on will still stand and outlast them even after Tyre has fallen. Reminding me once again of a simple lesson, and that is the reason that humility has practical value, because at any level of achievement, as I sometimes say, my prayer for you is my prayer for me. May we live the kind of lives that God would be moved to show mercy toward, so that no matter where we rise to, he would likewise extend us the grace to end well.